the Credit Union Broadcast Experiences, Cube TV.
Hi there, I'm Amy Wargo. Thank you for joining me at the CU Compliance Connection, brought to you by InfoSight. Today I'd like to talk with you about an important guidance issued by FinCEN in August 2014 on promoting a culture of compliance at your credit union. The August guidance from FinCEN stemmed from shortcomings that have triggered both civil and criminal enforcement actions. This advisory further highlighted the importance of a strong culture of BSA/AML compliance. It specifically notes that senior management, leaders, and owners of all credit unions subject to its regulations should heed this guidance regardless of size or industry sector. Let's look at the key elements included in this document. These elements are not new or groundbreaking additions to the BSA. They've always been implied through the Act's requirements. However, as recent enforcement actions have shown, these lessons were not always embraced. FinCEN's advisory is a great reminder to leaders of credit unions. Keep in mind, this advisory does not change any existing expectations or obligations under BSA. It merely highlights and reinforces some important lessons to enhance your compliance in BSA. Here are the 6 key areas we will discuss in more details in the following slides. Credit unions can strengthen their BSA culture by ensuring that its leadership actively supports and understands compliance efforts. Efforts to mitigate and manage BSA deficiencies and risks are not compromised by revenue interests. Relevant information from the various departments within the organization is shared with compliance staff to further BSA/AML efforts. The credit union devotes adequate resources to its compliance function. The compliance program is effective by, among other things, ensuring it's tested by an independent and competent party, and its leadership and staff understands the purpose of its BSA/AML efforts and how its reporting is used. Let's talk in more detail about each of these points. Leadership is responsible for performance in all areas of the institution, including compliance with the BSA. Leadership may include board of directors, senior and executive management, owners, and operators. For a BSA/AML compliance program to be effective, it should have demonstrable support of the leadership, periodic training for its leaders that is tailored to their roles, leaders with appropriate understanding of obligations and compliance in order to make informed decisions relating to the allocation of resources, and ongoing communication on the state of compliance within the institution. Compliance staff should be empowered with sufficient authority and autonomy to implement a credit union's AML program. A credit union's interest in revenue should not compromise efforts to effectively manage and mitigate BSA/AML deficiencies and risks, including submission of appropriate and accurate reports to FinCEN. An effective governance structure should allow for the BSA/AML compliance function to work independently and to take any appropriate action to address and mitigate any risks that may arise from a credit union and to file any necessary reports, such as suspicious activity reports. Several recent enforcement actions noted that the subject institution had relevant information in its possession that was not made available to BSA/AML compliance staff. This may have resulted from a lack of an appropriate mechanism for sharing information, a lack of appreciation of the significance or relevance of the information to BSA compliance, or an intentional decision to prevent compliance officers or staff from having access to the information. There is information in various departments within a credit union that may be useful and should be shared with the compliance staff. For example, information developed by those in the organization combating and preventing fraud could also assist a credit union in complying with its BSA obligations. Similarly, credit union management should alert compliance to subpoenas received issued by government agencies to trigger reviews of related customers' risk ratings and account activity for suspicious transactions. Likewise, information sharing between financial institutions can often result in a more comprehensive picture of suspicious activity and more useful reporting to law enforcement. A required element of any BSA compliance program is the designation of an individual responsible for coordinating and monitoring day-to-day compliance. The individual should be knowledgeable of the BSA and have sufficient authority to administer the program. This is not a new element, as BSA has always required this. In fact, your BSA policy notes who you have given this important role in your credit union to. The failure of an institution's leaders to devote adequate resources to the BSA compliance function may lead to other failures. For example, credit unions, as well as other type of depository institutions, may have staff that reviews alerts generated by transaction monitoring systems. Devoting insufficient staff or other resources to this function may result in alerts not being reasonably designed to capture appropriate risks, or being dismissed improperly, or create a backlog of alerts that may result in the untimely reporting of suspicious activity. Appropriate technological resources should also be allocated to BSA compliance. Institutions with higher risk profiles, including those with substantially higher volumes of activity, may need to utilize automated systems for identifying and monitoring suspicious activity. Appropriate involvement of a credit union's leadership should be at a minimum commensurate with the institution's level of BSA AML risk exposure. Appropriate leadership involvement allows the BSA AML function to implement an effective compliance program. Components of an effective program include a proper ongoing risk assessment, sound risk-based member due diligence, appropriate detection and reporting of suspicious activity, and independent program testing. This is another element that should already be addressed in your BSA policy and compliance program. While recognizing that all the components of an effective compliance program are important, FinCEN stresses the independence of the testing of a compliance program should have. A credit union's leadership should ensure the party testing the program, whether internal or external, is independent, qualified, unbiased, and does not have conflicting business interests that may influence the outcome of the compliance program test. Safeguarding the integrity and independence of the compliance program testing enables an institution to locate and take appropriate corrective action to address BSA AML deficiencies. Finally, leadership and staff at all levels in a credit union should understand that they are not simply generating reports for the sake of compliance, but rather recognize the purpose that BSA reports serve and how the information is used. The reporting and the transparency that credit unions provide under FinCEN's regulations result in some of the most important information available to law enforcement and others safeguarding the nation. It is used to confront serious threats, including terrorist organizations, rogue nations, weapon of mass destruction proliferators, foreign corruption, and increasingly some cyber-related threats. The reporting that credit unions provide also assists in the fight against transnational criminal organizations, including those involved in drug trafficking and massive fraud schemes targeting the U.S. government, our businesses, and our people. The reporting that credit unions provide is used to serve as tips to initiate investigations. BSA reports contribute critical information that is routinely analyzed, resulting in the identification of suspected criminal activity and the initiation of investigations. For instance, approximately 100 SAR review teams across the country bring together investigators and prosecutors from different governmental agencies to review reports related to their geographic area of responsibility and use the information to initiate criminal investigations where appropriate. Reports may also be used to expand existing investigations. The reporting aids in expanding the scope of ongoing investigations by pointing to the identities of previously unknown suspects, exposing accounts and hidden financial relationships, or revealing other information such as common addresses or phone numbers that connect seemingly unrelated participants in a criminal or terrorist organization, and in some cases even confirming the location of suspects. Nearly 11,000 federal, state, and local law enforcement and regulatory users conduct roughly 30,000 searches per day of the reporting using FinCEN's information technology tool for making queries about known subjects. The information credit unions report also promotes international information exchange. The Egmont Group has developed mechanisms for the rapid exchange of sensitive information between 146 financial intelligence units around the world. In 2014, based on current trends, it is estimated that FinCEN will receive approximately 1,300 incoming Egmont requests from foreign FIUs seeking information derived from BSA reporting and make approximately 700 outgoing Egmont requests on behalf of the U.S. law enforcement agencies seeking similar information from foreign FIUs. And finally, the reports credit unions provide help identify significant relationships, trends, and patterns. BSA reports unmask the relationships between illicit actors and their financing networks, enabling law enforcement to target the underlying conduct of concern and to use forfeiture and sanctions to disrupt their ability to operate and finance their illicit conduct. BSA reports also reveal trends and patterns on criminal, terrorist, and other emerging threats that enable law enforcement to focus limited resources. This quote from the guidance really stresses how important it is to explain the reason for the Bank Secrecy Act. The work credit unions do to support BSA efforts are noble and should be emphasized in ongoing training. Since training is required on an annual basis, it's a good time to see how your program may be enhanced, keeping this quote in mind. Now let's talk about next steps you can take. This guidance sets the stage for discussing how your credit union can promote a culture of compliance. Here are some steps to consider. Share this guidance with key leaders in your credit union. Review your training materials to ensure that they're tailored to each trainee's role. Make sure you include the why behind BSA as well as the importance of the reports generated. Think about how you can broaden these concepts into other areas of compliance. If you would like to learn more, here are some additional resources to consider. Thank you for joining me at the CU Compliance Connection by InfoSight, only on Cube TV.
Cube TV is powered by CU Solutions Group. Stay tuned.